So, I mean, you have to change your habits. I mean, when people say, how long does it take to charge? I say, oh, about 15 seconds. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I get home, I plug it in. I leave in the morning, I unplug it. It's fully charged. I leave it with a full tank every day. Going to the gas station is extremely inconvenient.
So in terms of the adoption of EVs in the marketplace by the consumer and how that translates into the cars coming into the shop, we know that the governments have set the mandates of, well, in BC here, all new vehicle sales are supposed to be zero-emission vehicles by 2035. A lot of the main manufacturers have committed and they're going all in, saying that even in 5-10 years, they're going to have nothing but EVs available for sale. So do you see, I guess one is relative to the other, you know, first of all, the consumers have to do the adoption and buy the EVs. And then that's going to translate into the number of EVs coming into the shop. Do you see this as being a very slow, gradual transition over the course of, say, the next 15, 20 years? Or do you see it really growing exponentially and rapidly in a shorter span of time?
I think that depends on what part of the province or the country you're in. In urban areas, it's going to be the exponential growth, I think. But as soon as you get outside Metro Vancouver, I can definitely understand why people are less reluctant or more reluctant to adopt them for a lot of reasons. I mean, the distances they travel, the charging infrastructure, even home power. I mean, you leave Metro Vancouver and power outages, power goes out for a day or two. It happens, right? And, you know, interestingly enough, some of these cars can actually power back into your home. And that technology has been around for a while, but hasn't really been adopted. But some of the early Nissan Leafs, there was people selling kits that you could plug into your Leaf and power up your house during a power outage.
Ford's advertising that their Lightning truck coming out this year can do that.
Sure. So these are areas that are not thought about by the people that worry about power outages, but nonetheless, it's a valid concern. If you come home with an empty tank and you think that your tank's going to be full by morning because you plug it in and the power's out, well, that is a challenge. It doesn't happen in urban areas, though. So I expect in the cities the growth to be very fast. And I tell people all the time, you know, when was the last time you saw a tube CRT type TV on the shelf? It took 10 years between the first flat screen and the point where there was nothing but flat screens, right? So EVs are kind of hitting that point now. It's just they're just going to push everything else out, except in certain markets. I mean, the truck market, the towing market, commercial vehicles, and then there's the rest of the province. I mean, we have to be aware that this is a big country, and although the population centers are dense, then we have nothing for hours and hours. And, you know, someone in 100 Mile isn't going to buy an EV and count on it. It's just not the way they live, right? So it's going to take longer. I'm not saying that nobody will buy them up there. They absolutely will, but it's going to be way different. And that is what concerns me a little, is that the government makes a rule that sounds good in Victoria or Ottawa, but, you know, it doesn't work in Port St. John. So it's like...
Well, that said, though, I did hear an interesting stat on the radio. They were talking about EVs, and apparently the country that is leading the world in EV adoption is Norway. 91% of all new vehicles sold are already EVs in that country. And you could make a lot of comparisons between Norway and British Columbia in terms of weather and mountains and all
pretty
the rest
cold.
Of that kind of stuff.
A lot of mountains.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
so much for those objections.
We got to find out what they're doing if we want this to succeed.
Sure. I mean, the infrastructure and charging is one, and I haven't looked a lot at it, but I'm well aware of those numbers and what we're seeing there, but I assume that they're more densely populated than we are, but I actually don't know that.